Hey guys, and welcome to my channel. Today we will be painting a basic seascape reflection from the rocks in the still water. And well, I hope this will be easy, and I don't think this is an actual final painting. You can add a couple of things on there, but we'll talk about that later. Now, first I am drawing my sketch, and I'm starting off with drawing the horizon line, and the horizon line I will place in the upper third, on the line of the upper third of my paper, and then I'm just pre-sketching where the rocks are gonna be, and I will place them also on the right and also on the left side. On the left side there will be two of them. All the materials I will be using are listed down in the description box, so you can of course check it out. Next thing I'm doing is erasing the part of the horizon line where the rocks are. That is something you don't have to do, because you know we're gonna paint it in a dark color, so it won't be visible anyway. But the horizon line would be visible because the sky and the water will be pretty light, so I would lighten it, the horizon line, with the needed eraser, which is just perfect for picking up some excess graphite and lightening your sketch. And after that I've pre-wetted the entire paper and I'm painting in the sky, and for sky I'm using mix of sepia and ultramarine. It just gives beautiful grayish color that I love for the gloomy sky, so I've used it for painting the sky. And then I've added a little bit more ultramarine and painting in the water, the upper part of the water. And here you can either leave your paper to dry completely, dry it with a hairdryer before painting the water, or you can just do the same thing as I did, paint it, but just be careful not to go up to the horizon line. Just leave one part between the horizon line and the sky without painting with that darker color, because if you do, it will bleed into your sky, and that is not actually what we want. We will paint that water a little bit darker later on, so you don't have to worry that that part will be left light. Later on I've added a little bit of emerald green to my mix of sepia and ultramarine and painted in the lower part, and just a little bit of sepia to paint in the lowest part of the water. Afterwards I left it to dry completely and then pre-wetted the entire paper again. And now that is what I was talking about. Now we will be painting that part underneath the horizon line, and for this time I've used ultramarine with just a little bit of sepia, mostly ultramarine, to paint in that upper part, and then added again emerald green and painted in the lower part, but this time I've used just a little bit more pigment than before. Then I've added a little bit of sepia into that mix and painted in the lower part. And I'm not painting just the lower part with sepia, I am going upwards also and just adding those, well, I guess that won't be waves because we are looking at the still water. This is just the reflection from something in the water, making it a little bit darker or a little bit lighter. And that is the reason why I'm painting it all the time, wet on wet, because I do want those transitions to be smooth. Afterwards I'm painting in the rocks, and I did not pre-wet the paper. I'm using Mars brown and sepia, the mix of those two, just one color, just the other color, and then the mix of those two. And that rock will be darker than the one that is near to us, so I'm painting it pretty dark. And I'm again not painting it in one same wash, but I'm just making round strokes with my brush, because I don't want that mountain, that rock, to look as though there is some texture on it, that's just not flat. So I was just using the round strokes to add that texture. The same thing I did to the one rock on the right side, and I'm adding, as I said, Mars brown and a little bit of sepia. Those are the colors I'm using for the rocks. This one will be a little bit lighter in the part nearest to the right edge. And also again just doing those round motions, just I'm just doing all sorts of motions with my brush, because I really do want it to be uneven and I do want it to be a little bit textured. Now I'm moving on. When my first rock dried on the left side, I'm moving on to the second rock, and this one I'm painting, as I said, a little bit lighter than the one that is further away from us, and I'm using mostly Mars brown to the part where those two rocks are touching, meeting, they're not actually touching, but the part where the one that is near to us ends. And I painted it with Mars brown and added again sepia, again those round strokes, making a little bit texture to the rocks. When the paint dried, of course, as watercolors, they dry lighter. The first rock dried too light on me, so I just wanted to add a little bit more of the sepia to that rock, and again in the same way as I did before, just with some round strokes, making that texture. Afterwards, I am painting in the reflection from the rocks, and this time I've prevented just the part where that reflection would go, just trying to follow the shape of my rock, and then took a larger round brush. But you know what, I would actually advise you here to use a little bit smaller brush, because in that way you will be able to take in your brush more pigment and less water. Or maybe you have a brush that doesn't take a lot of water. This is actually a squirrel brush, real hair brush, and it does take a lot of water, so when you take pigment it is quite diluted with water, and well, it was too light actually for me, so later on I switched to a little bit smaller brush. So I advise you that you from the start take a little bit smaller brush, or one that doesn't have so much water, that is not so thirsty and takes so much water. Same thing I'm doing also on the other side, and as you can see, I just added a little bit of the pigment on the part where that rock touches the water, and then just let it bleed slightly into the lower part, and then just do those horizon lines also to make it bleed and to make some diversity in that reflection. And afterwards I just taken the brush and done some horizontal strokes to smudge it slightly. You can paint your reflection as dark as you want or as light as you want. If you want it to be lighter, just use a little bit less pigment, and if you want it to be darker, just use a little bit more of the pigment. When finished with my reflection, I prevented the part of the paper between those reflections and then added a little bit more of those horizontal strokes to add a little bit more texture to the water. And I've used the same colors as I did before, mix of ultramarine, sepia and some emerald green. And then I'm just going into my reflection, picking up some paint, and because it dried too even for me, I'm just picking up a little bit more paint and going into my reflection from the bottom to my rocks, and then again adding a little bit more of the texture. When the paint completely dried, I am just taking some flat brush, and you know, this is, I think, the great way to make it look as though that is a reflection on water. I'm just picking up some paint here and there, making horizontal lines where my white is pricking through. And also right now I'm picking up the paint vertically, and because I do want that reflection to have those white lines, you know, that white of the paper peeking through horizontally and also vertically. I do believe it makes it more believable as the reflection in the water. And afterwards, when that paint completely dried, I prevented it again, the part where the water is, and added a couple of more of those horizontal strokes. And also this time I've done them a little bit on the reflection, added them on the reflection also to add the texture of the water also in the reflection. And afterwards, again, when that all dried, my reflection was too light for me, so I've added a little bit more of the pigment in the part where the rock touches the water, and just let it slightly go downwards also into the reflection. And with that, I'll be finishing off this painting. As I said earlier, you can add to this painting maybe some birds, you can add maybe some boat, sailboat peeking through behind those rocks, or maybe just add something on the lower part, something also picking up some boat peeking through on the water, just whatever you like. This doesn't have to be a finished painting, as I said. It does miss something, if you ask me, but I wanted to finish it there because I want to leave it up to you to add something if you want to add something. And with that, I'll be finishing off this video. Thank you guys a lot for watching, for all your support. If you like this video, please hit the like, share it, comment, and if you haven't still, please subscribe to my channel. It would really mean a lot to me. And I hope I'll see you next time. Bye!